Captain He-jin Kim looked through the main window of the research vessel, Nebula Seeker. The sight before her made her hold her breath. Beautiful clouds of purple and blue gas stretched as far as she could see. This was the Eagle Nebula, one of the biggest star-forming regions in their part of the galaxy. "Captain, all systems are working normally," said Jae-yun Lee from her seat at the navigation console. Jae-yun was the best navigator in the Asian Space Agency, and He-jin was glad to have her on this mission. He-jin nodded and turned to look at the rest of her crew. Dr. Taewon Park was already busy at his science station, his fingers moving quickly over the control panel as he took readings of the nebula. Even after working with him for 5 years, He-jin was still amazed by how fast his mind worked. "The gas density is higher than we expected," Taewon said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "This means more stars are being born here than we thought." The Nebula Seeker was the first human ship to enter an active star nursery. He-jin and her crew had trained for 3 years for this mission. They were here to study how stars were born, but even their training hadn't prepared them for how beautiful it would be. "Look there." Jae-yun pointed to their right. Through the thick purple gases, they could see a bright light. It was a protostar, a star that was still being born. Around it, clouds of gas spun like water going down a drain. He-jin walked closer to the window. She had studied stars all her life, but seeing a star being born with her own eyes was different from looking at telescope images. "Start recording everything," she ordered. "Future scientists will want to study every detail." The ship moved slowly through the nebula. They had to be careful because the gas clouds were very hot. Their ship had special shields, but He-jin didn't want to take any risks. This mission was too important. "Captain," called Myray from the communication station, "I'm picking up some strange energy readings. They don't match anything in our database." He-jin walked over to look at Myray's screen. The readings showed waves of energy moving through the nebula. They looked almost like patterns, but that couldn't be right. Natural things didn't make patterns like that. "Dr. Park, what do you think about these readings?" He-jin asked. Taewon looked at the data and frowned. "This is odd. These energy waves, they're too regular to be natural. But that's impossible. Nobody has ever found artificial structures this deep in a nebula." The crew worked quietly for the next hour, taking more readings and pictures. He-jin noticed that the strange energy patterns seemed to be everywhere in the nebula. It was like someone had drawn invisible lines between the forming stars. "Captain," Jae-yun called out suddenly, her voice excited. "You need to see this." He-jin walked to the front of the ship again. Through the gases, she could see something that made her stop and stare. A group of protostars were arranged in a perfect circle. In nature, stars never formed perfect circles. "Send all our data back to Earth," He-jin ordered, "and prepare the probe. We need to get closer to those stars." As the crew got ready to launch the probe, He-jin couldn't stop looking at the circle of forming stars. In all her years of studying space, she had never seen anything like it. Something strange was happening in this nebula, and they were going to find out what it was. The probe launched smoothly, its small form disappearing into the colorful gases. As they waited for it to reach the circle of protostars, He-jin felt a mix of excitement and worry. They had come to study how stars were born naturally, but it seemed they might have found something much more interesting, and perhaps much more dangerous. To be continued. The probe's data started coming in 3 hours after its launch. Jae-yun Lee sat up straighter in her chair as the first images appeared on her screen. The circle of protostars looked even stranger up close. "Captain Kim," she called out, her voice steady but excited. "You need to see these readings." He-jin walked over to Jae-yun's station. The numbers on the screen made no sense at first. The energy levels around the protostars were changing in a regular pattern, like a heartbeat. "Dr. Park," He-jin called. "Could natural forces cause this kind of pattern?" Taewon studied the data for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "These patterns are too perfect. Someone or something is controlling these stars. The crew fell silent. They had just found proof that they weren't alone in the universe. More than that, they had found a civilization that could control stars. Mayray's voice broke the silence. "Captain, I'm detecting similar patterns from other parts of the nebula. They're everywhere, we just couldn't see them before." Hejin took a deep breath. This changed everything. "Send another message to Earth. Mark it as urgent. We need to tell them what we found." Just then, something strange happened. The probe's readings changed suddenly. The energy patterns around the protostars started moving faster. "The stars are responding to our probe," Taiwan said, his eyes wide. "It's like they know we're watching them." Hejin watched as new data filled their screens. The energy patterns were changing, becoming more complex. It reminded her of when someone notices they're being watched and turns to look at the observer. "Should we pull the probe back?" Jae-yun asked. Before Hejin could answer, a new pattern appeared in the energy readings. It was different from the others, more organized. It looked almost like. "Those are numbers," Taiwan said suddenly. "They're sending us numbers. Basic mathematical sequences. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. Mirai typed quickly at her station. "I'm running it through our translation programs. The patterns keep changing, becoming more complex. It's like they're testing to see if we understand." Hejin made a quick decision. "Send back the next number in the sequence. Let them know we understand." The crew watched as Mirai sent the signal. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly, all the energy patterns around them changed at once. "Look at this," Jae-yun said, pointing to her screen. The patterns were forming clear shapes now, like a giant three-dimensional drawing in space. In the middle of it all, the circle of protostars began to pulse with a soft blue light. "They're trying to talk to us," Hejin said quietly. "The stars themselves are their communication devices." Taiwan worked quickly at his station. The amount of power needed to control stars like this, it's incredible. Their technology must be thousands of years ahead of ours. "Captain," Mirai called out, her voice urgent. "I'm getting a new pattern. It's different from the others. I think they're sending us instructions." Hejin looked at the main screen where the new pattern was displayed. It was simpler than the others, like someone speaking very slowly and clearly to make sure they were understood. "They want us to follow the pattern," Jae-yun said, studying the navigation readings. "It leads deeper into the nebula." Hejin looked at her crew. They had come to study stars. But now they had the chance to make first contact with an advanced alien civilization. Everything they knew about the universe was about to change. "Plot a course to follow their signal," she ordered. "But keep our shields at maximum. We don't know yet if they're friendly." As the Nebula Seeker began to move, Hejin watched the stars around them. Somewhere out there, an ancient civilization was waiting to meet them. She just hoped humanity was ready for what they would find. To be continued. The Nebula Seeker followed the energy patterns deeper into the nebula. Around them, the gas clouds grew thicker and brighter. The ship's sensors showed dozens of forming stars, all pulsing with the same organized patterns. "Navigation shows something large ahead," Jae-yun reported. She adjusted the ship's course slightly to avoid a particularly dense gas cloud. Through the main window, the crew saw something that made them all stop and stare. In front of them was a massive structure made of what looked like pure light. It was shaped like a sphere, but with complex patterns flowing across its surface. "Energy readings are off the charts," Taiwan said, checking his instruments. "But they're stable. Whatever this is, it's perfectly controlled." A new pattern appeared on Mirai's communication screen. This time, it was forming into shapes that looked almost like writing. "The translation program is starting to understand their basic patterns," Mirai said. "They're using universal concepts, mathematics, physics, and light itself to communicate." Suddenly, a beam of soft blue light reached out from the sphere and touched their ship. Hejin tensed, but the ship's sensors showed no danger. "Captain," Mayray called out, her voice filled with wonder. "They're speaking in Korean." Through the ship's speakers came a voice that sounded both familiar and alien at the same time. "We are the stellar architects. We welcome the observers from Earth." He-jin stepped forward. "This is Captain He-jin Kim of the research vessel Nebula Seeker. We come in peace." "We know," the voice replied. "We have watched your species grow. You are young, but you learn quickly. That is why we chose to reveal ourselves to you." A figure appeared before them, made of the same bright light as the sphere. It looked almost human in shape, but its edges were blurry, like a star seen through a telescope. "You may call me Eternal Light," the figure said. "I am tasked with making first contact with promising species." Taiwan moved closer, his scientific curiosity obvious on his face. "How are you controlling the stars?" "The energy needed would be enormous." Eternal Light made a gesture, and a small model of the nebula appeared in the air between them. "We do not control the stars," it said. "We work with them, guide them. Each star is a part of our network, a living computer that spans the galaxy." "But why show yourselves to us now?" He-jin asked. The light figure seemed to dim slightly. "Because we need help. Our network is failing. We have made mistakes in our eagerness to expand, and now we face a crisis that threatens our entire civilization." The model changed, showing stars turning dark one by one. "We hope that your species, with its fresh perspective, might see solutions we have missed." He-jin looked at her crew. They had come to study stars, but found themselves in the middle of something much bigger. The fate of an entire civilization might depend on what they did next. "We will help if we can," He-jin said, "but we need to understand everything about what's happening." Eternal Light brightened again. "Then let us begin. There is much to share, and time grows short." The sphere of light opened, revealing a path inside. As He-jin and her crew prepared to enter, she thought about how this moment would change human history forever. They were about to learn secrets of the universe that humans had only dreamed about. But something in Eternal Light's words worried her. What kind of crisis could threaten a civilization that could shape stars? And why did they need humanity's help to solve it? To be continued. Inside the sphere of light, the crew of the Nebula Seeker found themselves in a vast room that seemed to have no walls. Stars and nebulas floated around them like a living map of the galaxy. Young engineer Sung-min Cho worked at his portable sensor unit, taking readings of everything around them. His hand stopped suddenly over the controls. "Captain," he said, his voice tight with worry, "you need to see these readings." He-jin moved to look at Sung-min's screen. The numbers didn't make sense at first, but then she understood. The stars in the architect's network were dying much faster than they should. Eternal Light's form appeared beside them. "You have discovered our problem," it said. "Our network is failing. The stars are burning out too quickly." Taiwan studied the data on his own screen. "These energy patterns, you're pushing the stars too hard. You're making them burn their fuel too fast." The light being dimmed slightly. "Yes, in our drive to expand our network, we forgot a basic truth about stars. They need time to live their natural lives. We tried to make them work faster, think faster. Now they are dying." Mayray, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "How many stars are affected?" Eternal Light waved a hand, and the galaxy map zoomed in to show thousands of dying stars, all connected by lines of energy. "Nearly 1/3 of our network is failing. Soon, the collapse will spread to the rest." "But why tell us?" He-jin asked. "What can humans do that your advanced civilization cannot?" The being of light moved closer. "Because you humans see things differently. You are young, but you understand something we forgot long ago. The importance of balance, of working with nature, not against it." Sung-min's sensor unit suddenly started beeping loudly. He checked the readings, and his face went pale. "Captain, one of the stars in their network just collapsed. It's causing a chain reaction. They watched as several stars in the map turned red, then dark. The energy lines connecting them flickered and died. Time grows short, eternal light said. But there is something else you must know. Some among my people have grown desperate. They seek a solution that would endanger your world. Hajin felt her heart skip a beat. What do you mean? They want to add your sun to our network. They believe its young energy could stabilize the failing stars. The crew looked at each other in horror. Their mission to study stars had turned into a race to save their own solar system. Is there a way to stop them? Hajin asked. Perhaps, Eternal Light replied. But we must work quickly. Your sun is not the only one they plan to take. Many young civilizations could be destroyed if we do not find another solution. Taiwan stepped forward. Then let us help. Show us everything about how your network works. There must be a way to save your civilization without destroying others. Hajin watched as Eternal Light began sharing complex diagrams and data with her crew. They had come seeking knowledge about stars, but now found themselves trying to save both their own civilization and one far more advanced than their own. As she looked at the map of dying stars, she wondered if humanity's fresh perspective would be enough to solve a problem that had stumped the stellar architects for centuries. To be continued. Security Officer Du Hyun Kang noticed it first. While checking the Nebula Seeker's long-range sensors, he saw several objects moving through the nebula. They were made of the same light as the architect's sphere, but these gave off a different energy pattern. Captain Kim, Du Hyun called out. We have unknown vessels approaching. They're not responding to any signals. Hajin turned to Eternal Light. Are these your people? The light beam's form flickered with concern. Yes, they are the ones I warned you about. They come to study your sun. Through the giant map around them, they watched as the light ships moved with incredible speed. They were heading straight for Earth's solar system. How long until they reach Earth? Hajin asked. At their current speed, less than 6 hours, Du Hyun reported. Taiwan looked up from his workstation. That's not enough time to warn Earth or prepare any defenses. Eternal Light moved to the center of the room. There is another problem. These ships carry technology that can force a star to join our network. Once they reach your sun, they will not need permission to take it. Hajin felt the weight of Earth's fate on her shoulders. Billions of people had no idea that their sun might be stolen in just a few hours. There must be something we can do, Mirai said. We can't just let them take our sun. Eternal Light's form brightened slightly. There might be a way. My ship can catch up to them, but I cannot stop them alone. They will not listen to reason. Then we'll go with you, Hajin said firmly. Maybe if they see humans and architects working together, they'll understand there's another way. The crew quickly prepared for departure. They had to leave the safety of the sphere and chase after ships that were far more advanced than their own. But they had no choice. Earth's survival depended on them. As they traveled, Taiwan and Mirai worked with Eternal Light to understand the architect's technology. They needed to find a way to protect their sun if talking failed. Look at this, Taiwan said, pointing to his screen. Their method of connecting to stars. It's all about forcing the connection. But what if we tried something different? Mirai leaned in to look. You mean, work with the star's natural energy instead of forcing it? Exactly, Taiwan said. Every star has its own rhythm, its own cycle. Instead of fighting against it, we could work with it. Eternal Light moved closer to their workstation. This is different from how we have always done things. But it might work. The ship's alarm suddenly started blaring. The other ships have increased speed, Du Hyun reported. They'll reach Earth's sun in 3 hours now. Hajin looked at her crew. They had 3 hours to either convince the other architects to stop or find a way to protect Earth's sun. And if they failed, humanity would face an eternal night. Keep working on that solution, she told Taiwan and Mirai. It might be our only hope if we can't talk them out of this. As their ship raced through space, He-Jin watched the distant light of Earth's sun on their view screen. She had always studied stars from a safe distance. Now she had to find a way to save one, or her entire species would pay the price. To be continued. Dr. Taewon Park and Mi-rae Yoon worked quickly at their stations aboard the Nebula Seeker. Time was running out. The enemy ships were getting closer to Earth's sun with each passing minute. "I think I understand what we've been doing wrong," Taewon said, drawing everyone's attention. He pulled up a diagram on the main screen. "Look at how the architects connect their stars. They force them to sync up, like making everyone march to the same beat." Mi-rae nodded and added to his explanation. "But stars aren't soldiers. They're more like dancers. Each one has its own rhythm, its own way of moving." Eternal Light moved closer to their display. "Please explain further. This perspective is different from how we have thought about stars for millennia." Taewon typed rapidly on his keyboard, bringing up new images. "Instead of forcing the stars to connect directly, what if we used quantum entanglement? Like building bridges between the stars that don't interfere with their natural cycles." The crew watched as he ran a simulation. In it, stars connected through delicate threads of energy, each one maintaining its own unique pattern while still working together. "This is remarkable," Eternal Light said. "The energy requirements would be far lower than our current method, and the stars would not burn out prematurely." He-Jin looked at the countdown clock. They had less than 2 hours before the other ships reached Earth's sun. "Can we test this theory quickly?" Mi-rae pointed to a small cluster of newly forming stars nearby. "We could try it there. Those stars are just beginning their life cycles. They would be perfect for testing." Eternal Light's form brightened with excitement. "Yes, I can provide the quantum entanglement technology. You will need to guide its implementation based on your understanding of stellar rhythms." The next hour was intense. The crew worked together, combining human insight with architect technology. They watched anxiously as their test connected 3 young stars using quantum bridges. "Look," some men called out from his sensor station. "The stars are maintaining stable energy levels. They're working together without burning extra fuel." Eternal Light studied the readings carefully. "This is unprecedented. The efficiency levels are beyond anything we have achieved in thousands of years." But their celebration was cut short by Do-hyun's voice. "Captain, the other ships have detected our experiment. They're slowing down. I think they're coming to investigate." He-Jin straightened in her chair. "This might be their chance. Send them the test data. Show them what we've achieved." Mi-rae transmitted the information. For several tense minutes they waited. Then, one by one, the enemy ships changed course, turning away from Earth's direction. "They're sending a message," Mi-rae announced. "They want to know more about our solution. They're asking permission to come observe our test site." He-Jin looked at Eternal Light. "Will they listen now?" The light being's form pulsed with what seemed like hope. "Yes, you have shown them something new, something that proves there is another way. My people respect innovation above all else." The crew of the Nebula Seeker watched as the other ships approached slowly, no longer as enemies, but as curious observers. They had found a way to save both Earth and the architect's civilization, not through force, but through understanding. To be continued. The great sphere of the architects filled with light beings. They had come from across the galaxy to see the new discovery. He-Jin and her crew stood before them, ready to present their solution. Among the architects was a younger one called Newborn Star. Unlike the others, its light shifted and changed constantly, showing curiosity and excitement. It moved closer to the humans, studying them with interest. "We have reviewed your method of quantum connection," one of the elder architects announced. Its voice echoed through the sphere. "It is different from everything we have done before." He-Jin stepped forward. "Different doesn't mean wrong. Your way of controlling stars worked for a long time, but now it's time for a change." Newborn Star moved to He-Jin's side. "The humans are right. I have studied their history. They adapt and change quickly. That is their strength. The elder architects conferred among themselves, their light forms mixing and separating as they discussed. Finally, eternal light emerged from their group. "We face a choice," eternal light said. "We can continue our old ways and watch our network die, or we can learn from these humans and try something new." Todd 1 and Myray displayed their latest test results. The quantum bridges between stars glowed softly on the giant map, showing stable connections that didn't harm the stars. "Look at the energy readings," Myray pointed out. "The stars work together naturally now. They help each other without burning out." Newborn stars' light pulsed brightly. "This is what I have been trying to tell the elders. We must evolve. We must learn to work with the universe, not try to control it." Some of the older architects moved away, their light dimming with doubt. But others came closer, studying the humans' work with growing interest. "There is something else you should see," Hejin said. She nodded to some men, who brought up new data on the display. "The quantum bridges don't just connect stars. They can help heal the damaged ones." The map showed dying stars in the network slowly stabilizing as the quantum connection spread to them. It was like watching a withered plant come back to life after getting water. One by one, the doubting architects began to change their minds. They saw how the human solution could save their civilization without destroying others. "We have lived for millions of years," an elder architect said. "Perhaps that is why we became set in our ways. We forgot how to see things with new eyes." Newborn star moved through the crowd, its light touching each architect in turn. "Let us learn from the humans. Let us remember what it means to be young and willing to change." Hejin watched as the architects began to glow with a unified light. They had made their choice. They would adapt and survive, not by forcing their will on the universe, but by working with it. "We accept your solution," Eternal Light announced, "and we offer an alliance between our peoples. There is much we can learn from each other." The sphere filled with bright, joyful light as both civilizations celebrated their new partnership. They had found a way forward together, proving that sometimes the youngest species could teach the oldest ones the most important lessons. To be continued. 20 years had passed since the first contact with the stellar architects. Hejin Kim stood at the observation deck of the new Earth Architect space station, watching ships move through space below. Each ship carried both human and architect crews, working together to maintain the quantum network that now connected thousands of stars. "Grandmother, come look at this," called a voice behind her. Hejin turned to see her granddaughter, Yumei Kim, standing at a control panel. At 25, Yumei was already one of the leading experts in stellar engineering. Hejin walked over to see what Yumei was showing her. On the screen, a new stellar nursery glowed with soft light. Unlike the forced patterns Hejin had seen 20 years ago, these stars pulsed with natural rhythms, connected by delicate quantum bridges. "We're using the quantum network to guide star formation now," Yumei explained proudly. "The stars grow at their own pace, but the network helps them stay stable." A familiar glow appeared beside them. It was Newborn Star, who had become Earth's main ambassador to the architects. Its light had grown stronger over the years, showing its increased wisdom and experience. "Your granddaughter has learned our ways well," Newborn Star said to Hejin. "But more importantly, she has taught us new ways to see the universe." Through the station's windows, they could see one of the great spheres of the architects in the distance, but it looked different now. Instead of pure light, it showed swirling patterns of stars in space, a sign of how the architects had learned to embrace the natural flow of the cosmos. "The network is now 10 times larger than it was when we first met you," Newborn Star continued. "And not a single star has burned out prematurely since we adopted your quantum bridge method." Yumei pulled up another display, showing the latest project she was working on. "We're starting to understand how to help stars live longer naturally," she said. "Not by forcing them, but by supporting them, like a garden." Hejin felt pride as she watched her granddaughter work. The young woman represented everything good that had come from the partnership between humans and architects. She had grown up learning from both civilizations and found ways to combine their knowledge. A group of training ships flew past the station, carrying the newest class of human architect crews. They would soon join the fleet that maintained the quantum network, ensuring that stars across the galaxy could work together in harmony. "Do you remember what you told me 20 years ago?" A Jinn asked Newborn Star, about how humans see things differently. The light being pulsed with amusement. "Yes, and you have proved it true many times since then. Your species' greatest strength is not your technology or your knowledge, but your ability to imagine new possibilities." Yumei finished her work and joined them at the window. Together, they watched as a new star began to form in the nursery, its birth guided gently by the quantum network. It would grow at its own pace, supported but not controlled by the combined wisdom of two civilizations. "This is how stars should live," Heijin said softly. "Free to follow their own path, but connected to others who can help them grow stronger." As the new star's first light reached them, Heijin thought about how far both civilizations had come. Humans had gained knowledge beyond their dreams, and the architects had learned to see the universe with new eyes. Together, they had found a way to help stars live longer, brighter lives without losing their individual beauty. The end.